Welcome to another edition of Stormy Weather, news from the front line in the end times. I'm very delighted this week to present a chat that I've had with Neil Kramer, the Cleaver. The website there is thecleaver.blogspot.com. Neil is someone whose work I've been aware of for quite some time without actually really looking into it in any depth, but it's a link that pops up just about everywhere you go within this community, so he's definitely had quite a following for quite some time now, but our paths haven't crossed until now, and Neil and I went very deep into many different areas, as you'll see, and once again it was a 2-hour chat, so I'm breaking the conversation into 2 parts, and the next part will be up following Wednesday. I'm trusting that you'll find this every bit as scintillating and stimulating as I did. Neil Kramer, welcome to Stormy Weather.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's good to join you.
I was listening to your interview with Henrik on Red Ice. The description that you made of your experience in Glastonbury with the polarity and the bifurcation of consciousness that you were describing, because it's something that I hardly ever hear about. It's something that I've observed for a long time, and I've tried to express it to people, but I've always had a hard time because there's this very sort of shiny, happy new age view that we're all ascending and we're all awakening, and that consciousness is rising in the species, whereas my experience in a sense has been the opposite. And so your description was very, as I say, it was very refreshing, and it was very similar to something that I'd heard recently on a tape from this teacher called John DeRuta, who speaks at the College of Integrated Philosophy. I guess you'd say he's a guru. He's here in Canada. And I was listening to a tape just a couple of days before I was listening to your interview, where he talked about the presence of truth in the world, and that the stronger the presence of truth becomes in the world, the more people resonate with truth, the more that those who are in untruth, the deeper they have to go into untruth. So in a sense, the stronger the presence of truth in the world, the stronger the resistance of the untruth becomes.
Yeah, they seem to be equal and opposite, don't they?
Yeah, well, it's almost like I think you described it this way with your metaphor of the airplane. It's almost like a physical cause and effect thing, that I guess it's as simple as an essential phenomenon, which is the awakening of truth, or kundalini, or however you want to see it, with the corresponding reaction to it, almost like the wave and the undertow. The bigger the wave, the bigger the pull, the stronger the pull of the undertow. And that's very much been my observation, and even my experience to some extent in the world, is that the more certain individuals do resonate with truth, the greater the resistance becomes to that, and so the greater the split between the two areas of attention, if you will, consciousness.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've just pulled a thought out of my head. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Well, so you're about the only person that I know who's spoken about this, at least in that particular field that we're in. And the reason I brought it up now, it actually sounds like we've started, but I didn't mean to do that on you. But the reason I brought it up before anything else was because I was curious about whether this concept of the polarity consciousness, whether that relates to your blog and the name of it, the Cleaver.
No.
Okay, short answer.
It could do. It's like one of those things that maybe outside of time, maybe that is the choice, and that is where things were going in a kind of 4-dimensional way. It reaches back and says, yeah, that is why it's called that. So it is about duality, it is about cutting through things and so on, but the polarity thing is really something that's necessarily presented itself without any option to ignore it in the last 2 years of my life. So it's something I've been just slowly conscious of, but it really surfaced and was unavoidable. So that's something I've talked about quite a few times now.
So moving on. In the email I sent you, I described to you, explained to you pretty much this the template I have for Stormy Weather episodes, and you were happy just to. You haven't even seen the questions, is that right?
No, I've no
Without.
idea what they are.
Right.
Nope.
So you have every
I might
confidence.
regret this, but it should be entertaining at least.
Yeah, I think so. But before we embark upon this journey, discovery, do you want to tell the listeners something about yourself and about your blog so that they can find out more about you?
Sure, yeah. Well, basically, I'm a blogger. If you want to use a more dignified term, a writer, but blogger's cool with me. I've had a blog called The Cleaver for around, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. I think it started up in the middle of 2006 or thereabouts. Uh, Done various podcasts, done some speaking engagements, working on a book, doing an audio project at the moment, and doing a megalith project at the moment as well. So anybody who's familiar with my blog will be aware of that. For those who aren't, if you just go to thecleaver.blogspot.com, you get the idea pretty quick. So I'd
Mm.
say, I'm the mercurial blend of mystic and metaphysician, sorcerer, and self-indulger. So, take your pick.
Is it psychedelic self-indulger? Is that what you're referring to there?
Yeah, yeah, that'll do. That's cool, yeah. No, I don't know what that means, but it sounds good.
So what is a megalith, briefly?
A megalith is basically an old stone. So it's uh, it's something that's pretty common on the UK landscape, and there seems to be a definite concentration of them in various areas such as Anglesey and Derbyshire and Wiltshire and Somerset in the UK. And these things are pretty ubiquitous, really. But most people envisage perhaps Stonehenge or Avebury and little else, but actually they're all over the place.
Hmm.
And when one has a walk round and discovers them and looks at them in the immediate environment, you find that many of them have been built upon by churches, strangely enough. So
Hmm.
anybody interested in kind of dragon lines and energy lines and vortices and so on, there's a lot to get into there. So although a lot of geologically minded people have gone quite into this, my angle is slightly different and it's a little bit more entheogenic, if I dare say, and a bit more intuitive. So I'm not necessarily doing a study as such that I would want to present a paper on.
Mm.
It's more an encounter. I would use that word is probably more accurate. So the results of that I'm going to release towards the end of the year
Hmm.
as a disc with audio and video and some photographs and so on. So one becomes aware when you blog that a lot of the audience is very international, and you forget that. So most people are never going to see stone circles and dolmens and a lot of these sites that appear. Nobody will get a chance to see it. So this is
Right.
the next best thing to get a feel for it.
So what's that word entheogenic that you just used? Don't think I've heard that one before.
Okay, an entheogen is basically a more botanically flavored word for a psychedelic.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
So a lot of people who follow people like Terence McKenna and so on towards the late 90s, towards the end of his life, he started to slip into that word a little bit. And now, if you see any contemporary shamanic writings, particularly by sort of the more popular people like Daniel Pinchbeck and stuff, he'll drop that word left, right, and centre.
Hmm.
Um, and I suppose if you're one of the new generation, anybody under sort of 60 really, it's not as loaded with the baggage of psychedelic. So if I said entheogen to my mother, she wouldn't, kind of worry about it. If I said psychedelic, she'd probably, drop the dishes.
Hmm. Okay, well let's press on. These are just we're just looking for one word